Welcome to Sold as Seen episode 11. I'm Andy Cooper from RMS Motoring and I'm joined by Gary Riley.
Hello.
And this week's guest, we haven't been here for weeks and weeks, this show's guest, Donal O'Neill.
Hello.
Donal, you're very welcome. Donal's the manager of Kirkistown Race Circuit and director at Trackskills. And Donal, hope you can deal with our preamble here. Stick your oar in at any stage, it's most welcome, and we look forward to getting a good chat with you later in the show. But first of all, we've had a bit of a gap since the last Sold as Seen. It was sort of early December, but we've a bit of a lineup for you coming later this year. So firstly, with Donal today, I'm then meeting Mark McCall from the EV Association of Northern Ireland, and we're going to get out in a Tesla Model 3 Performance, and we're going to talk all about the disaster with its charging infrastructure and what it's like to live with an EV in Northern Ireland and all that jazz in the next show. I'm going to visit Patrick McCulloch. Patrick is Nazer on the forum. He lives in Vegas now, and I'm hoping to get over to see Patrick at the end of March, and that'll be interesting to see how someone with
Vegas, you say?
Vegas.
Can we all go?
No, just me. Did you not get that message?
No, the expenses won't stretch.
No.
Okay.
So looking forward to that. We're chatting to the guys from GTI NI because Dubshed is back this year at the Icon Centre down near Lisburn, and I just want to chat to those guys with the challenges around running the biggest car show in Northern Ireland. Donal will definitely be chatting to you later on about the challenges of running a race circuit and track days and all in the madness.
Certainly.
You know, so it's been a mad year. We're also going to chat to the cops.
The 5-0.
The 5-0.
Yep.
So a couple of guys in RMS who are in the force, and we are hoping to twist their arm to come on. So that should be a bit of crack. So we have 4 or 5 shows lined up over the next few months. But what have we missed? So there's a pile of stuff that has happened. First of all, today, I'm in the Model 3 Performance, which picked up Donal in early on. Good crack, Donal, isn't it?
Absolutely amazing.
Unbelievable.
Still trying to pick my brain out of the back of my head. Yeah.
You know, 60 in 3.3 seconds, the Model 3 Performance. Was it 500 or 600 horse? It's just unreal. So Tesla press department very kindly lent me a car for a week. So I'm going to do a bit of a video on that. I actually tried to book a Model Y, misread the email and ended up with a Model 3. Because I do things at 100 miles an hour and the detail sometimes completely escapes me. But what a mistake to make it. Like it's unreal. I also had the Mustang Mach-E just before Christmas, another great electric car. So yeah, anyway, I've had the Mustang. I've got the Tesla at the moment. As I mentioned, the guys from GTI NI are going to be on the show hopefully later this year before the return of Dubshed, which is, I think, the 1st, 2nd of April this year back in Icon, which is fantastic news, the sign of normality. A slightly life-changing news myself coming up, and my wee GR Yaris might have to make way for some sort of more practical motoring, because of a wee one on the way.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, guys. Mm-hmm. So that is just going to be... I don't know what I'm letting myself in for. So the clock is ticking. I still haven't cancelled the Lotus Emira order there. I'm going to keep that under wraps, but I think...
You're going to make it work?
I'm going to make it work. You're right, I am. So, yeah. So, holy shit. But
you need now something for your doors.
Yeah, I know something which is like 6 meters long and has a sliding side door on it. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But no, really, really, really looking forward to it. It's just very, very exciting. But yes, now thinking in terms of, and it's funny actually. Found out not long before I got the Mustang, and it's like an SUV thing, you know. So it's sort of family orientated, and then you sort of starting to think about, well, how much boot space does something have? You know, the performance and all those other things that that I cared about before. Just
your
sort of
perspective just changes.
totally changes, you know, and how, because people use cars for commuting and shipping families about. Never mind just when I just want to take it for a track day, or how hard is it down a back road and all that sort of carry on, you know.
You're normally reading like the 0-60 times. Now you're looking at diesel fixed points.
Definitely.
I know, you're actually right too. It's the frightening thing. So, but no, looking forward to it. So it's great times. And you may have noticed or not noticed. Maybe no one's remembered or thought that Ross isn't here this week. Ross was due to be here, but
Ross who?
Well, I can't remember his surname either. Ross Pimp. That's his surname.
Ross
isn't it?
Pimp, yeah.
Ross Pimp.
Hope he's listening.
I hope he's listening. Ross couldn't make it because of the COVID, so he's and it was just a very last minute thing, or we would have zoomed him in. So we had hoped to do some Q&A this week because we had got absolutely inundated with questions on the forum. We'll do it in the next show with Ross. Don't worry. So I've got cars, dub sheds back. I was great at Cars and Coffee last week. It's great to get out to these sorts of things. I was down at Blackline down in Moira last weekend. The turnout of stuff was just fabulous. This lockdown has had such an effect on people. I see all sorts of stuff coming out of the woodwork. See these supercar days and all the rest, the things that are just, you know, the stuff that's coming out of the country that people would have kept under wraps before and taken out on a Sunday are now, frigate, you know what, it will get it out because life's too short.
It's too short. The other thing is people have had a chance to work on things that they've been meaning to work on for years, and all of a sudden they haven't been able to go to their work. You know, and they're getting furlough for not being in work, so they're able to work on their car.
Furlough projects,
absolutely.
A friend of mine over in England is building a Ford GT replica, but he has been building it for about 20 years, but he's got more done in the last year and a half than he has in about 20 years.
That's it. And then the other thing is, you know, you couldn't spend money during lockdown, so now they have money to spend on cars.
Well, yeah, and we were at Cars and Coffee. Yeah, well, we were talking about this on the way down too. You would need to the price of cars at the moment.
Aye,
yeah,
it's
insane.
It's serious altogether. The second-hand market is just, everyone's waiting for the bubble to burst, but there's just absolutely no sign of it.
It's not debating, no, and it's hard to get stock too, and it just seems to be just staying the way it is really for now.
Yeah,
I'm sure it will burst like every bubble.
Yeah, and then it's hard to know. Then the march towards electrification, does that just mean anything exciting that is internally combusted in the next 10 years? It's just,
it's a dying breed now. This is the thing, you know. And, we all were kind of waiting for the modern classic market just to completely collapse, you know. But it's kind of come the end of its life now. But we're approaching this age where EVs are coming in, so it might not burst. It might just retain its value on them cars and go up if anything.
Yeah. So, but it makes it difficult. The price of stuff at the moment makes it difficult for people to change car, and the cost of stuff. The cost of EV entry is huge. Like you can't buy anything. Like it used to be a case of you have 500 quid would bought you a runner, 6 months MOT, and it's now $3,000. You know, the world has moved on. Another thing we were chatting about Donal and I on the way down the road is there's the 330 championship down at Kirkistown, and obviously a championship designed to be low barrier to entry, E46s, isn't it?
E46s, 330Is.
Yeah.
And the idea was the scrapyards were full of them, absolutely full of them.
Yeah.
And the idea is the original idea was you put a race car together for $5,000. Now, I know one guy that did it and quite successfully, but most people ended up spending probably between 8 and 10 on the car. But the whole idea was, you know, if you did a gearbox in, 50 quid out of a scrapyard. You know, these days, if you find a 330i gearbox somewhere that's good, you're talking 500 quid. You know, so it's up, you know, just enormous amount. You know, so it's no longer a cheap championship, unfortunately.
No, and there's nothing else that could replace it. Though there's not.
It's funny. You know, it was a great idea at the time. I think its time has gone for reasons we've just said. The obvious replacement is the MX-5 championship.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
But the problem you have there is most of them have gone to lanes rallies.
Oh, true. True. They're used elsewhere.
They are indeed. But that is a cost-effective championship where $5,000 will put you a good car out.
Is that the Mark 1s or the Mark 2s down?
It doesn't matter. You can run Mark anything.
Could a Mark 2 be affordable now in that? Or I don't know much about them.
Yeah, most of them actually would be more Mark 2s than Mark 1s.
Probably actually find like a G, like when did an MX-5 come out? 89, 90 or something like that there. That they're probably starting to get the classic status, so they're maybe starting to creep up.
They are.
But a less desirable Mark II.
Mark 2.5 would have been less desirable. And the only problem is they have the dreaded rust problem.
Yeah. The rut gets... not what we're going to talk about it, but interesting story. The MX-5 was it a North American designer actually designed that car, even though they're a Japanese company?
I don't know. They were the story went, as I remember, it was based on the Lotus Elan.
Yes.
And when Lotus stopped producing the Elan, I think they sold the rights to Mazda.
Okay.
And then they took it and made a better job of it.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm saying a better job of it because it was more modern. Using better. I'm not decrying Lotus in any way, shape or form. The Elan was a great wee car, but the Mazda definitely took it and ran with it and became the most popular roadster ever.
Oh yeah,
they're just fantastic.
Yeah, out of the box there.
It's not unlike the Mark II NSX, the recent one. It was obviously Honda behind it, but designed in America.
Yeah. And I was going to say it's
there as well.
A slightly different price bracket.
Yes.
We start off MX-5 at a couple of grand. Gary sticking. And it just reminds me of
NSX Championship.
Yeah. But
the MX-5 appealed to so many different people. That was the thing. I mean, there was the old joke about the hairdresser's car and all the rest of it. But, I mean, the funniest thing I ever saw on an MX-5, I don't know if you know the guy. Do you know Big Jeff Hill? No. He's called Big Jeff Hill for a reason. He's a wonderful journalist, but he's 6'7", size 17 feet. And he used to arrive at Kirkistown on an MX-5 with his head poking out over the top of the windscreen, But they're just a wonderful wee car.
Oh, they're fantastic. But yeah, even those are a dying, will be at some stage a dying breed. But maybe there's a bit of life in that for building a competition class out of it.
In England, it is massive. I mean, they're just absolutely silly. They keep splitting. Because of so many cars.
Yeah, okay.
50 cars at a race meeting. 50 MX-5s at a race meeting.
You hope something will come along that'll, cheap that'll fill their bits. Once they do disappear. Like the GT86 in a few years, hopefully will drop a bit, and that's coming into range where you can buy one that would be affordable, especially with the new one coming out.
I suppose it's all down to build numbers, isn't it, as well? How many cars actually are still in the country and usable and all the rest?
That's why the MX-5s did so well, because there were that many of them sold. Yeah. That could be a problem with the GT86 because they're a great wee car, but there's not that many of them sold.
No. And even the cheapest GT86 is maybe, $10,000 or something?
Still, they're still sitting around there, a few years off yet.
Yeah, but no doubt a brilliant car for track days, even just for as a track day car.
Absolutely.
Out of the box, just ready to go.
Funny, that latest Evo came out the other day has a review of the GR86, the successor, which I read.
The Gritty 6, as I like to
They love it. I mean, really love it. They said everything that they found wrong with the GT86 has been resolved in this.
I think I know from driving the GT86s they were a wee bit anemic, so typical Japanese power profile, all the power's up at the top of the rev range, but it didn't rev that hard. And whereas it's a 2.4 now, isn't it? And so it's got a wee bit more torque.
More torque, about 30 or 40 horsepower more. And I think they noted, as you said, the power's up in the top rev range, but it didn't feel like a joy taking it there.
Yeah.
Whereas the new car, I think it's quite rev happy, like a VTEC, and you can enjoy pushing it. Yeah. And then they've resolved kind of the build quality of the dash and the components inside, so it feels like a much richer car inside than the old one did.
Yeah.
And I think that the handling's just meant to be a delight.
Yeah.
It's really well balanced.
No, they're nice. Like the problem is where the car I have, the Yaris. Why didn't the turbocharge? Why didn't you put the Yaris engine in?
Yeah.
You turbocharge it.
And then it's about the Super. People buy it and it's up themselves if they want to tune it and take it up to something and see it.
Did I hear that they're talking about bringing a manual version of the new Super out? That would be a fantastic job.
Could they, though? Is it not the BMW gearbox? So they'd have to...
I don't know.
You're getting confused with the DCT Super.
Oh yeah, that was a fantastic conversion. So we were over at, I think we talked about this in the last show, did we? That we were at the Classic Car Show in the NEC, and it was the Super stand with the sort of, is it the 90s Supras?
Mark IV Supra.
Yeah, with the BMW DCT dual clutch gearbox conversion. Like what genius, So it's
but made a dead hood engine.
So fraction of the price of like a straight cut box or something like that, and brings all your modern daily drivableness to it, but you could still, and then they can map these boxes as well and do clutch kicks into an automatic gearbox and all that. That's all that stuff's just
clever.
Is absolutely mega. On a slight segue, close to a gearbox at the other end of the prop shaft, did Ross, although he's not here, he better have bought that 4.1 diff for his E46. I'm gutted he's not here, because Ross's first track day, he took his E46 M3 out at Trackskills. Was it October time or something last year? He had the yellow M3.
The only yellow. He had the yellow M3.
He had the yellow M3.
I don't remember. There's that many. The yellow. There's one yellow M3 who's there all the time.
Yes,
That's Arnold from Oma. Yeah,
or he can pedal that car. He can pedal it.
He's been driving that for years. And the car just gets quicker, and he gets quicker, and he gets older, and boys can't live with him. It's great.
And there's a lot to be said for getting to know the car. Keeping it on. Exactly. A lot of people just get at a certain stage and then move on.
Exactly.
I know he was hassling me, and I was in the GT4. I was no problem to him, but it just goes to show what there's no replacement for seat time.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's nice to have a shorter ratio back end. So Ross, if you haven't bought that diff, you better have it for the next show.
He's probably out doing hoops as we speak.
Do you reckon? Oh dear. So yeah, there's been a bit going on. There's Supercar Sunday is returning to. And I say this quietly, Bishop's Court. No, other tracks are available.
It's one of my favourite tracks. I love it.
That which will not be named.
So yeah, the Supercar Sunday is a 2-day event this year at Bishop's Court. So it's great to see.
Charity event, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's great to see the calendars just starting to fill up, and of course there's Trackskills as well. Don't know, you guys have a full calendar of events.
Full calendar this year.
6, 7, 8 track days. 10 track days. Unbelievable. Which is great.
And what we're finding now is that there's two things have happened which worked. One of them works very well for us. It used to be 10 guys could go to Kirkistown and say, look, we want to hire the track for the day. Under a sort of testing. That has now been knocked in the head due to insurance. It's already, if you've got 10 racers with race licenses, then they are testing. But just 10 guys who aren't racers can no longer do that. So I'm finding people phoning us up in Trackskills saying, look, can you organise a day for us? So we're having sort of exclusive days as well for people, which is quite good fun.
It's a different umbrella then over it.
Yeah, well, it's a Trackskills day, but it's not open to the public, if you know what I mean. We had one there in between Christmas and New Year, which was a hoot. It was great. There was 8 drivers and 6 cars.
Wow, okay.
And you had most of them are quite nice. I mean, the cars, not the people. People were dead on. People, But I think that the oldest thing was an old AMG Merc, but it was quite old, and it sort of was the one that struggled the most. It was knackered.
What like a 90s one or something like that?
No, it wasn't that. No, it just had about 100,000 miles.
All right, okay, so it had been round the block.
It had been round the block a few times. But there was a 550 Ferrari, and there was a Integra Type R.
Oh, yeah.
All these were owned by the one guy.
Oh, right,
quite
okay.
Weird, And a few other things. What was it? There was another Ferrari. I'm trying to remember. Oh no, sorry, it was an NSX.
There you go, Gary.
Well. But these guys went down. They all had a bit of a time. Every one of them drove. Everybody drove the cars. Each one swapped around and so on. There was one slight screw up, shall we say. Most of the cars arrived on a transporter.
Right. Okay.
Right, and the guy, when he was putting the Ferrari onto the transporter, ripped the side out of one of the tires.
Oh shit!
So when the car got, he didn't know Wednesday between Christmas and New Year, where to get a tire at a moment's notice.
And potentially an oddball size, an oddball compound, and all the red. Yeah.
So he contacted. Funny, the guy opposite Kirkistown, Andy Little. I don't know if you know me. He would do recovery and all that sort of stuff.
Oh right, okay, maybe
and phoned to Andy, and he actually got hold of somebody in Belfast, got the tire. Went up and got it, brought it back down, fitted the whole thing, and got the Ferrari back out again, which was good going.
Brilliant.
And that's one thing about Kirkistown, plugging it, there's the likes of Andy Little there, but there's also David Cousins, who's directly opposite Kirkistown as well. Now, David is an MX5 expert, but he's also very handy with anything else. Yeah. And the number of guys we've sent over on a Sunday afternoon with a broken exhaust or a broken this or a broken that, and Davey's there, and he's up welding away, and they get back out again.
It's somewhere that...
Where else would you get it?
Yeah, well, it's somewhere I've never been stuck, because I've had a few bits and bobs happen over the years, and mates, the same story, the guy, everyone pulls together. What do you need? Mm-hmm. Such and such, a tow up the road, such and such, obscure parts. It's nearly everyone just gets on the, it's a challenge.
Yeah,
we'll get you back out before the end. Someone's sitting I'm sitting here in a possible situation, and then next thing they're back out, or they're up, they're going home, or whatever else.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, our famous thing about Kirkistown track days is the little monster that eats brake pads. We have, it's unique to Kirkistown. It's like a gremlin, and if you look on our website, tips for newbies, and about 5 times it's listed, bring a spare set of brake pads. But people think, oh no, I got a new set in before I come down, and of course they come down and halfway through the day they've no brakes. But it's amazing, as you say, the number of people in the paddock who rally round and get them sorted out, or help get them sorted out. And people say to me, I wouldn't know how to change my brake pads. Don't worry, there's about 50 people in the paddock who tell you how to change them or help you change them or whatever. So there is a great camaraderie down there.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic too, because even though I know how to change brake pads, I would quite happily sit back and
somebody else
have a cup of tea.
Being ignorant.
My dad called up to the house and needs brake pads in his Octavia last week, and no problem, got the brake pads, went to fire them in, and it's one of those calipers you have to push and wind. So it was out with needle nose pliers, waste of time. Ripped the boot on the piston. Ooh. So then it's like the caliper off, and new boot, proper tool, and then had to bleed the system and all that. A half an hour job turned into flipping mission.
Yeah,
we've all been there.
So some crack. And another random brake pad story was I ran out of brake pads at the Nürburgring in my 335D, as you do, and. In the toilets in the Nürburgring, you go into like public toilets, and there's stickers for chat lines and women and all sorts of stuff.
And brake pads.
And literally there was a need brake pads, ring this guy, and you ring him, and he sent me a thing on WhatsApp, and you go down to his house, and it's just a wee garage at the side of the house, about 2 miles from the track, and it was just floor to ceiling with just popular brake pads for like Civic Type R's and all the rest. And I had to give him like €90 for brake pads, and he had a jack, used his jack, and you tore away.
Brilliant. I've just envisioned you looking very shifty, and some guy with a brown paper bag.
100. That was exactly what I was expecting.
Looking right, she's getting a copter.
Yeah. So,
take a break.
Take and see. Yeah. So unbelievable.
Okay, so Andy, as you're aware, I've been looking at EVs recently. Is this a shocker?
This is a real shock.
I know, because I think, how many of these episodes have we done now in this podcast? About 7 or 8. And every single one I've made a point of saying I hate EVs. I'm just a dinosaur. I love V8s, I love V6s, anything with petrol engines.
And the truth of it is, like, I'm not a massive EV fan. It's the future. Loads of people are asking me about them, and I've ended up driving a few for some reviews. But okay, so tell me. So how has this?
Just man maths. Just my wife's due a change. She has a 330D BMW, and we're in a fortunate position that she can get a company car. So sitting one night doing the sums and looking at the figures in the car, and then looking at the EV figures for the big techs. And I know you've mentioned before that's extremely low, but when you actually sit and work it out, what a typical car ownership costs you per year versus taking on the company car off the tax, it seems like a no-brainer almost.
So this is the case where you didn't apply man maths?
Woman maths, almost, you could call it.
Maybe I just led you into that.
Possibly, yes.
So basically what you're trying to say in a nutshell is woman maths has led you to potential EV ownership?
Potential EV ownership, although I would say it's my wife that won it, not me, so I'll get her driving it now and again. But no, we're still at early stages. We're looking at different models and things. And
what's on the short list? What do you fancy?
Well, we're going to be limited by what the company car sheet says, but there's a Q4 on there, the new Audi EV, which is really, really tempting, because I actually passed one the other day and I thought it was a really nice looking thing, and then I showed it to her and she likes it too. So she's always liked Audis.
For daily life and for family life, they're fantastic.
you know, like I love cars as you do, and as everyone does that probably listens to this, you know, and we drive them because we love driving them. My wife's very much an A to B person, so she's not concerned about the type of engine or anything in it. Now she has come to appreciate them more since she married me, but still, an EV would do the job. So the only real question marks I have are the range, you know, and getting the charging point installed and all them kind of concerns. But you know, everyone else seems to be doing it now, and I think I may as well jump in now. Why wait another 7 or 8 years?
Well, even though we may think it might bore our the 2 or 3 listeners that we actually have, but let us know how you get on with that, because even though I seem to be this EV evangelist, I don't actually own one. I haven't actually bought one with my
just trying lots of them.
Own money, just for being given them, and continually, unfortunately, I can't hide it, I'm continually being impressed.
It just happenstance that I was looking last night or the night before. A friend of mine works for the NHS, and they have a scheme.
Well, their scheme is incredible.
I tell you what's on it: that Tesla Performance that you're driving tonight. And when you work it out with all the the tax back and all the rest of it, and the fact that your insurance is included, and up to 4 other drivers, on the insurance, and when you worked it all out, what it was actually costing you was less than 400 quid.
A month.
That's actually costing you. You were maybe paying 6 or something like that, but you were getting it back in tax and so on. And it really was a no-brainer. And that included your servicing and all the rest of it. Now, if you imagine somebody with a family and a couple of young people coming up who are starting to drive, there can be 2 of your named people in the insurance.
You're making a lot of savings.
Can you imagine a 17-year-old in a Model 3 Performance?
Well, I wasn't suggesting that. You could just imagine going through the nearest hedge.
I could barely manage the 90 horsepower of my Corolla back in the day.
That would be peaking too early, for sure.
Definitely. But it's the way to look at it. You know, if you have a good enough company scheme, it's worth looking at it.
I'll say this, like looking at it recently, and I've spent a lot of time looking at it, has really opened up my eyes to the actual cost of the cars that we have currently, because I'm not one of these people who pays much attention to miles per gallon. I just think if the car needs filled, There's no point me sitting staring at the figures in the forecourt, because I'm going to fill it anyway afterwards, you know. But you sit down, and I've been really precise about this. I'm looking at the fuel costs, insurance costs, cost of tyres, cost of servicing, maintenance, wipers, every single thing I do to the car in a year, and you add it all up. And you don't always see that money coming out of your account. You know, you just do bits here and there, but you add it up over a year, it's scary enough.
Yeah.
I have a very close friend. We were in business together years ago with Eurotanks, anybody remembers back in the day. And he was a petrolhead like me. And this last 4 years now, he's been driving an EV. And he wouldn't go back. He has a Hyundai at the moment and loves it. Absolutely loves it.
The Hyundais make excellent EVs.
They really do. That one of his is just unreal. You know, he was one of the lucky ones because he got in early. He got the grant and all for getting the house charger and all that sort of thing. And he's on Economy 7 and everything else. And he's like that. He is a bit of a guy who's I don't want to use the word nerd, but he's a nerd, and he goes into all the fine details of what it's costing electric and all the rest of it. And he says it's a total no-brainer. Absolutely loves it.
No, well, hopefully, we'll see how it goes. I'd like to get it and kind of tell the story as we go along, what it's like to live with, and
living with something's totally different to. In fact, you sort of hear the Tesla detractors. When I hopped into the Tesla today and sort of thought, I had been listening to all that noise about Musk and all the rest, and then 2 minutes of driving, it's like, this is a bloody great. It's a product, like it's it's not the car as I would normally term it, but as a product, as a thing to do something, which I suppose is not like the Porsche is not just a thing to do things. It's something it's a thing to enjoy. And I can appreciate both for what to do. But let us know.
Well, that actually brings me on nicely to the next thing on my list, which is that during the research I was doing here, I read that Sony is going to start an electric car firm. Sony of TV fame and PlayStation.
Is it going to be like the mini disc of cars? Showing our age here.
This is the thing, Tesla can kind of come out of nowhere. So Sony, sure, they with their massive millions in the bank and all their research into electronics and batteries over the years, and they innovated the Walkman and various other things. So
we need to get some photos of that. Is there a concept or is there an actual car?
I haven't seen any photos of anything. I think it's all just been announced really that they're moving into that area.
because Dyson tried it. I think Dyson spent an absolute fortune in it, because you would think that sort of technical into battery technology, all that sort of carry on, you could see how that would cross over. But then I think they had to can it. Well, there actually are some, and I'll post some pictures here on the on the show notes. So there's sort of a very much a Tesla influence there. I can see in the pictures.
Well, I just find it interesting there. You said it's more of a brand thing now and a product. And I think that's the angle Sony would probably take, because a lot of young people are familiar with Sony because of the PS5 and the PS4 and the massive success they've had there. So if you were 18 or 19 and then Sony released this car and you've grown up with them knowing that, you might get that brand appeal.
The other problem is with all this brand displacement is we could lose some of our beloved brands.
I think you will. Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the success of Tesla.
Yeah.
Tesla's no background.
Traditional
Elon Musk, he's not a motorman.
No.
Tesla is the name itself is a homage to Nikola Tesla. Who was an absolute genius and didn't get the credit for what he was for the things he did. But it's nothing to do with cars, and I think that appeals to a lot of young folk. When I say young folk, even people who can afford Teslas who aren't that young, but it doesn't have that attachment to the old stuff that's going on. And you're right. I think you could start losing some of the real iconic names from the past.
Well, my 8-year-old could tell you what a Tesla is. Couldn't tell you what a Porsche is, probably.
That's right.
Yeah,
he talks about them a lot.
The poster cars that were on our wall is just a totally different.
Big Duracell battery now.
Big charging cable. Do you know what? Speaking of dying things, it didn't last too long, but it was impressive enough. Gary, did you ever find yourself browsing DriveTribe at any stage? So this was the big social media platform built by Clarkson, Hammond and May. They tried to build this huge website after they left BBC and started the Grand Tour and all the rest, and they're canning it after 5 or 6 years and pumped millions into this.
They got outside money into it as well.
Yeah, huge investment. Gary's bringing the website.
I did more than browse it. I'm pretty sure I was a contributor on there.
And
at stage.
And 3 days until the DriveTribe website and app shut down. Very, very sad, because actually there were some good things about this. It seems to have been a good place for people to actually start their sort of journalism career.
Oh. Yeah,
because sort of anyone can.
Well, it started off, they did a campaign, if you recall, and they were trying to attract contributors to come in, and people would actually add media to the site and they add content. And I was one of them actually, and then you got an email back saying you've been accepted. You had to send through like a test review of a car or something like that there from memory. And like I did run part of it for about a year and put up loads of articles and things, but I just kind of got fed up. There's so many people doing it on it. You weren't making any headway. But yeah, it's still sad to see it go. It's
again,
do I like to see any side fail?
No, and like it's one of those, not a dying art, but I love reading Evo magazine. The intercooler, which was started by Dan Prosser, and is absolutely fantastic as well. But it's hard to get good writers.
There's just so much content online now. I think that you're spoiled for choice, and it's hard to make headway unless you're doing something really, really drastically different.
Yeah, so it's a shame. But anyway, enough of that. We were going to do some Q&A, but as we said, we will do that on our next show. Donal, welcome again. Donal, so you were recently crowned circuit manager at Kirkistown. Have I got your full title? And in the interest of fullness, if you aren't familiar with Kirkistown, even though we've talked about it a lot already, it's probably known as what's the fastest racing circuit in Ireland, would it be?
It's the fastest actual circuit as opposed to a road racing circuit. Obviously Dundrod's faster, but in terms of a proper racing circuit, it's the fastest one in Ireland. Yeah,
and it's about 40 minutes from Belfast down the Newtownards Peninsula. It's home to all sorts of disciplines: single-seater racing, bike racing, saloon sprints, all sorts of stuff. And of course, from where I've come to know yourself, Donal, through track days. So you're one of the two guys behind Trackskills, company that runs track days down at the track, and I've been at loads of these, fantastically well run, and you guys look like, when at one stage I was a newbie, and you look after new people really well, and because it can be quite a daunting thing to take your car out on track, unexperienced drivers like. But a bit of a plug for you there, Donal. It's check out trackskills.com if you fancy taking your car out on a circuit.
Yeah.
It's the best place to do it, especially with the amount of quote unquote road safety partnership we get to see about the place. And we talked earlier, you've 10 dates for this year. The first one's Sunday the 13th.
6th of February.
6th of February, right, okay.
Less than a fortnight.
Unreal. And but back to yourself, you're an accomplished competitor yourself. You won the Saloon Series last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, maybe I've butchered the press release here, but did you organise your own prize giving for that as well?
I did, actually. It's quite funny. There's always a prize given at the end of the year. It's actually always in January. And, of course, because of the COVID, we didn't have the previous years. Mm-hmm. So we were just itching to have a blowout this year. Yeah. So we decided, come hell or high water, we were having a prize giving. Yeah. So we did up in the Ballymac, halfway between Lisburn and Dundrod.
Not far from me. I need a social membership for this, I think.
Oh yeah, it was good. I tell you, we had a great night, and we actually give out all the trophies for the 2 years, which was good fun. And one of the most amazing things at Kirkistown, there's the Fiesta class, which is the real bottom rung for people getting into racing. It's the cheapest way to do it. And there's a young lad has been coming to us for the last 2 years from Germany. He turns up at every race meeting, flies in from Germany. He hires the car off a guy called Ricky Hull, Creative Motorsport. Ricky runs the car for him. He just literally arrives with his dad, and he races. He's doing very well. His name's Timon Dunk.
Okay.
And he finished about 5th in the championship last year, but he really come on well towards the end of the year. If he'd been going as well at the start of the year as he was at the end of the year, he probably would have been up in the top 3. So he's only a young fellow. I mean, he's about 17 or something, you know. So when we announced the prize giving, his dad got in touch, and at that stage, the COVID rules were if you were over here in the UK and go back to Germany, you had to isolate for 10 days. And Timon was starting school on the Monday, so he couldn't come. So his dad came instead. Oh. And he had a ball. We certainly introduced him to Irish hospitality. You know?
Fantastic. That's unreal. So we actually touched on the 330 series earlier on, so the Fiesta Championship.
Yep.
So if you could build it, or used to be able to build a 330 for 7, 8, 10 grand, what puts you into a Fiesta then?
Well, they're starting to go up again a wee bit in price. But I saw there was one advertised today actually in the south, and it was ready to go on €3,300.
So that's
about 2,700.
And that's like for an early 2000s Z-Tech 1.25.
1.25 Z-Tech.
Yeah. Yep. Cage seat.
That's it. Right. The only thing that car hadn't got. He'd obviously taken it out to put it into something else. He'd taken the harness out, and he'd taken something else out. It might have been an extinguisher or something like that. So you'd had to put those in, but you know,
it's probably a good start point. It's not enough power to get you into too much trouble.
Yes, except for the fact there's about 17 other ones there beside you, but all exactly the same amount of power, all heading to the same corner. I have to say, from sheer entertainment value, the Fiesta racing at Kirkistown is mighty, absolutely mighty. It got a wee bit out of hand at the start of the year last year, and the clerk of the course had a severe talking to them. You know, and there's actually a YouTube video. If you look it up on YouTube, I can't remember what it is, but it is probably one of the best in-car videos I've seen. It was the last Fiesta race of the year. It was for the championship. It all came down in the last race, and it was clean. And it was absolutely brilliant. The guy that won the race won the championship, but at one point he was down to 6th. Oh, you know, and he'd started out in the lead, dropped back down, and then fought his way back up again. And it is brilliant. If you get a chance, YouTube, look up Kirkistown Fiesta Championship 2021.
We'll post that. We do show notes, so we'll post it in the show notes and put it along with the show. But here we're here to talk about you specifically, Donal, right? Okay. There's no getting away from it. So, and you've raced everything.
Most things, yeah.
So, like, we're talking bikes, Formula V, Formula Ford, and the Saloons and the 330s and all that sort of stuff. Was it a Leon you...
Still have a Leon,
Still have the Leon as well.
Mark 1 Leon, not the later one.
So, is that an 18 turbo type one?
1.8T,
yeah. So it's fair to say that you probably know every inch of the black stuff.
Yes,
down in Kirkistown.
From the bike days, I know it very, very closely.
I am all parts of you, maybe.
Yes, exactly.
But on top of that all, entrepreneur, you've Trackskills, you run Mulsanne Casinos.
Yeah, note the name.
Yes, like
it was actually called after the straight
at the 200 mile an hour plus.
It was in the days when we started that. Yeah.
I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast. I have never been.
To Le Mans?
Busting to go.
Oh, it's wonderful. And it really is wonderful.
And in fact, when we were at we were chatting to a guy at the Classic Show, we were talking in detail about a guy who runs the and looking at the map to try and find out where our tent would be and all the rest.
It's just brilliant. It's a fantastic weekend. I recommend it. If you haven't done it, do it. First time I did it was 1999, and I actually decided I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing, so I went on one of the tours. You know, so I flew over to London, got on the bus at London.
Oh, brilliant!
And away we went. Back then, we didn't have the tunnel, and so we went across in the boat and drove down. And you basically could come to the bus at any time, so you had more to sleep on it if you wanted. You know, and they had arrangements with people that get into a hospitality tent and all this sort of thing. And it was a brilliant introduction to it, you know, really, really good. And then shortly after the last race, shortly after the flag was finished, within about 2 hours, you were back on the bus heading home. You know? And after I did that in '99, and then after that, I went across under my own steam with a motorhome. You know,
I bet you being in the bus, it was full of characters as well, because everyone was just pure petrol heads.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But the other thing, speaking about pure petrol heads, I mean, when you're on a bus, obviously the bus is doing 57 miles an hour. The stuff that's going past you on the motorway
at 157 miles an hour,
absolutely amazing. You know, you've never seen so many class motors going past you at Mach 10. You know, and when you get there, the great thing about Le Mans is it's such a big, massive site. You know, the size of the circuit, and all the different marques, all the classic marques have gatherings. You know, this is their annual outing. You know, so you'll get the Morgan Owners Club will turn up with every Morgan you've ever seen, from 3-wheelers up to the latest, you know, Aero. And you'll get Triumph Owners Clubs, you know, all the different ones all the way through, and Jaguar, and so on and so on and so on. And it's just brilliant. I mean, it's
just like a big mecca for car people, isn't it?
It's just unreal. The only thing that comes close to it is Goodwood, you know, the Festival of Speed.
Goodwood's unreal. It's fantastic.
But Le Mans is just a bigger site.
Yeah.
You know, that's fantastic. I recommend it. If you haven't been, go to it. I mean, my big love always was, and it is still to this day, road racing. And I used to go to the TT every year. And a couple of years I was there, it was wet, and I was sitting in the hotel room, I was flicking the channel, and I saw Le Mans. And that's what got me. I thought, I need to go to that. Yeah. And I went to Le Mans, as I say, in '99, never went back to the TT. Went to Le Mans after that.
That's some endorsement. So you have a casino business that you named after...
Fun casino business, yes.
Yeah. Which I have actually partaken in. I can't remember what event it was at. It was a couple of times we've crossed paths. That's great crack. You do PR.
Well, that's now been absorbed by the job at Kirkistown. I was doing all the PR for Kirkistown, and that's part of what I do now.
And I'm watching my surroundings carefully here, and I'm keeping an eye on the clock, because you're also a hypnotist.
That's right. Yes.
So
exactly. So this is a broad church of both life and motoring skills. Where did this all come from? You know. Or where there's obviously an obvious love of cars and bikes here. Where is that?
It's funny, because I am not a natural rider or a natural driver. You know, it wasn't as if I suddenly. I mean, my experience with motorbikes was disastrous at the start. I just couldn't get my head around them. You know, I mean, I'd love to be able to play an instrument, and I can't, because my left, I couldn't play the piano because I couldn't get my right hand to do one thing, my left hand to do something else. And when I jumped onto a motorbike, it was exactly the same. You know, only you had to have your right foot, your left foot, and so on.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get on with them at all. And I'd actually given up. I decided I wasn't going to do it. And now this is when I was about 12 or 13. And then a friend of mine went and bought this most beautiful bike from, it must have been back in the days when the police had sell-offs, you know, they would sell off things. It was a wee beautiful Tiger Cub. And up until that point, we'd always been buying rat bikes for 20 quid, 25 quid at the time. I don't know what he paid for this, but it was absolutely gorgeous. And he said, take a ride in that. And it all just clicked, you know, and that was me into bikes from then. And a few years later, I was racing them, you know, and I ended up, finished up with a 750 two-stroke Yamaha at Dundroyd in the northwest, which was just
class,
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
and there was nothing like it. I mean, it is the ultimate sport as far as I'm concerned. There's nothing compares to it. You know? And then I had a crazy year in my life in 1983, when I raced the Forerunners to quads, which were called ATCs.
Okay.
They had 3 wheels instead of 4. They banned them because they were too dangerous.
Okay. It just sounds like something that would continually fall over.
Exactly. And that was crazy. I hurt myself more in 1 year doing those than I did in all the time road racing. And I decided I had to get another wheel back, you know. So there was back in the day when you could do this sort of thing, we had a sort of a welcome everybody. We're going to have a test day for Formula V at Kirkistown, and the public just turned up, and I was one of the public in those days. I turned up and got a run in a Formula V and fell in love, and that was it.
And was was your family into it? Was it just mates into it? Was it just something you just tore off on your own and did, or?
Yeah, my family wasn't into it. Although, funny enough, before I was born, my mother used to drive a V8 Pilot, Ford Pilot back in the day, you know. My dad wasn't a petrol head in particular. He was a very cautious driver and all the rest of it, you know. So it didn't really come from family. The bikes, as I say, a lot of friends, we were all, around about those days, we were into bikes and whatnot, and that's how I got into them. The car thing, by that, I always watched Formula 1 and so on TV, always did, right from way back, black and white. And I suppose I always liked that idea. But when I jumped into the Formula V at Kirkistown and discovered that Deaders was flat, and it was, you know, that was it. I was hooked. You know?
Unreal.
And I've been racing ever since. That was 1984.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's been good. It's been really good. I've enjoyed it.
So what made you get involved? So at that stage, were you just a competitor there, or did you get involved in? So you're very involved with the circuit, and you have been. I know since I've known you for the last 15 or 20 years. But were you involved as much with the circuit back then, or were you just
It's funny actually, that story, because basically, whenever I was racing motorbikes, and to this day, the motorbike crowd. I don't mean that disparagingly when I say crowd. I would talk about the car crowd and the motorbike crowd. The motorbike people always thought that the car people were looking down on them, you know. And maybe there might have been a case maybe back in the 60s. I don't know. I wasn't about in those days, you know. But I was one of the motorbike crowd, so I thought that too, you know. And then, as I say, I ended up racing cars, but I went in as Formula Vs. And the problem with Formula Vs was they had a serious inferiority complex as well, because they were the cheapest of single-seaters. And they were absolutely brilliant. So we, being the Formula V drivers, we thought we were getting hard done by the 500 Club. Now, in actual fact, looking back on it, I know we weren't at the time. But that particular year, we decided to get a couple of people onto the committee of the 500 Club.
And the 500 Club is
who own Kirkistown.
Who own Kirkistown.
They actually own Kirkistown. It's the only club-owned circuit in Europe, right? So we actually got 2 Formula V drivers onto the council to stand up for Formula V rights. Yeah. And I was one of them.
Right, okay.
And I've been on the council ever since. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I'm probably, up until very recently, I was the second longest person on the 500 Club council, you know. And the guy that I've replaced actually was the longest person, you know, so it's really quite strange. But it turned out, you know, it was all in their head, you know.
Yeah.
You always, when you think you're inferior, then you are inferior, you know. And the Formula Vs, what it has given me, I have a real soft spot for them. I think they're the wonderful racing and recommend it to anybody. If you want to get started in single-seaters, that's the way to go, you know. Okay. So I've been doing it since then. I got more and more involved in the club. Just because I suppose I can't help it. I like organising things, you know. And then it was around about 2000 that track days were starting to happen.
It started to become a thing.
Yeah.
And it came up at the council, and somebody said, we should run track days. In fact, I think it was myself and another guy, Keith Ray, at the time was on the council with me. And we said we should run track days, and the council didn't want to know. You know? So we got our heads together and said, right, we'll run track days. And that was the birth of Trackskills.
Yeah.
You know, and it's grown to what it is now.
And 2 decades later. And
over 2 decades.
Yeah, and it's brilliant.
And the interesting thing is that if you look at any race day at Kirkistown, there's about 30 to 40 drivers who are now racing who came through Trackskills.
Yeah, who got a taste for it.
Got the bug, you know.
Yeah.
And this year alone, I know of 3 drivers who've done their ARGE test to go racing.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, because that's the great thing about going to a track day, because it's not just like me bringing a road car. It's guys doing a bit of testing and in their competition cars, exactly, and then suddenly you're chatting to the people in the pits and all the rest, and I could totally imagine how that's
part of fun is just walking around and mixing with everyone and seeing them.
Yeah, and that's a totally organic next step for some people just to go into it. And I've thought about it loads of times, but I haven't. But
having said that, there's other people. Great guy example is Eric Fulton. You know, Eric has it's an XNI7 car, lovely wee thing. Used to be owned by David Much, but Eric could be racing. He's a good enough driver to be racing. But I said to Eric, "You going to race this car?" No. He says, "I just want to do track days." You know, and there's people who do that, and that's fine. That's brilliant. The other guy we mentioned earlier on with the yellow BMW, Arnold. Arnold's capable of racing easily.
Yeah.
No interest in racing whatsoever. And the other guy who I haven't seen for probably 5 or 6 years now was Paul Keys. Do you remember Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Paul Keys, one of the best drivers I've ever sat with in anything. And Paul could have gone racing and cleaned up.
At any level.
People wouldn't have seen where he went.
It's track days, there's no pressure. It's just
there's none whatsoever. It's not a race. You're not allowed to race. That's the point. Officially, you're not allowed to time, and officially we don't time. But these days with the various things, gizmos you can put in your cockpit, it'll tell you exactly what speed you're doing.
Harry's lap timer and all the rest.
Exactly, But the whole idea, as you rightly identified, Gary, there's no pressure, and that's the key to it. You go out there, you drive as fast as you want to drive, or as slow as you want to drive, if you want to put it that way, and nobody's expecting you to try breaking records.
To me, it's you're there to hone your skills, not defend them.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly. And to use your car, find out what your car does in a safe environment. One of the things I look back at with the most sort of pleasure is it's probably now 7 or 8 years ago. Do you remember when the law came in that police could impound cars with no tax? And they could send them to the crusher, right? Well, not every car went to the crusher at the time, because what happened was a number of cars that the police impounded were sent to some of the further education colleges. For the students.
Yes, like that. Was the Police Evo, was that one of them? No?
Police Evo was one of the original ones, yes.
Yeah.
Well, back in the days of that particular Police Evo, there was a very, very forward-looking assistant constable up in up the north end of the country.
Maydown?
Round about Maydown, yeah. And he decided, he teamed up with the Limavady College. And they had a great setup in there. Like, quite a few of the college have the full MOT centre, all the rest of it. But what had happened, that whole north coast area had a very high fatality rate of young men, 17 to 23, getting killed. It was the highest in Northern Ireland, as far as I know. And Limavady, the college, they started a thing called Movari Cruiser.
I remember that,
And the whole idea behind the cruisers, back in the day, a lot of guys were just chopping springs and all sorts of things, and the cars were death traps. So there's William's one of the lecturers up there, and he said, "Look, bring the cars in here on a Thursday night, and we'll show you how to do it right." And they ended up having this great club, Movari Cruisers, and the cars were all customised and all the rest, but they were safe. And the police got involved to help and give advice and so on. And the next thing, we first heard about this because we got a call from the college saying, "Look, these boys have built 2 cars for the track. Could we bring them down and let them have a drive? Come on ahead." They came down, I remember, a full sort of minibus load of them, and they drove around the circuit. They thought it was great. And we ended up, to cut a long story short, because it can go on a bit, we ended up doing 2 full days for 6 colleges in Northern Ireland.
Oh, fantastic.
Who had all built cars, and about 68 students came with them. And I particularly remember the last day. The last day it rained from the minute they arrived to the minute they left, right? And there was one particular guy, I can't remember what the car, I think it was an Astra, but he went into the tyres at the hairpin 3 times, And when the day was all over, they were up in the sort of the clubhouse area, and they were having a debrief. And the chief constable said, "Does anybody like to say anything here?" And this young lad stood up, and I thought, in a room full of his peers, it showed he had an awful lot of guts, And he says, "I would just like to say," he says, "I'm the guy that hit the tyres 3 times." He said, "If I had done that on the road, I'd have been dead, or I would have killed somebody else." He said, "I learned so much today. It's unreal." And that was the key to the whole thing. You go out on a track, and you can make a mistake.
Yes.
And hopefully you're not going to hurt yourself, And you're probably, I'd say almost definitely not going to hurt somebody else, The place to make the mistakes is on a circuit, not on the roads.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things about track days. We don't want people to go out and start hitting barriers and all the rest of it, but we do want people to discover what happens when the back end steps out, or the front end, worse.
Yes.
You
it's something I've mentioned on here before, and I know a bit of drum about it, but I've always said like it should be compulsory now as part of your driving test that you do at least one track day or something about car control.
Yeah.
Because nobody gets in an accident because they're doing 30 mile an hour and driving safely. It's always when the car gets out of shape.
Of course it is.
I totally disagree with our plate system here.
Yes.
The fact that when you're learning you can't practice on the motorway, and all that. Although I think there's maybe talk of changing some of that.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. People should be used to driving at speed with the traffic and even basic stuff like that.
Aquaplane and stuff like that. You have to learn
Well, you look at Northern Ireland, you get a skiff of snow, and all of a sudden the traffic's going at 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Because everybody's absolutely terrified because they don't know what's going to happen. And really, what I would love to see here is a really good big skid pan. To teach people, a proper skid pan as opposed to that cradle thing you can put a car in. And just show people what happens. Let them go out and find out for themselves what happens in a safe environment. It'd be a great idea. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, totally.
No, that sounded a brilliant initiative. But I don't see more of it.
Well, what actually killed it was insurance.
As always is.
As always is. Yeah. You imagine talking to an insurance company, well, we're going to let these young lads out in this car in Kirkistown, and they've all got licences, but they've never driven at this speed before, and all of a sudden, well, if they do get hurt, who's going to cover them? The insurance company. It was the college's insurance,
right?
And the sad thing is that these are young guys who might avoid an accident down the line.
Absolutely,
cost more insurance.
Definitely.
So, it's ours about face.
Well, the interesting thing, I couldn't say it was all down to us, but we were certainly part of it. The fatality rate in the North Coast came down dramatically after that initiative.
Yeah.
So
good. It's the right type of engagement, isn't it? Rather than just being hammered.
Oh yeah. It's very much the carrot rather than the stick. Yeah.
Well, look, you've sent us some photos here on down the page. One of which is I think that man is a crisp enthusiast.
He is indeed, Gary Lineker.
Yes.
Yeah. Some of these photos, I just rooted them out of the archives, and I can't remember. That was there was some initiative going on with karting. That young lad has obviously got the K plate, which is what you get for winning a particular event at Kirkistown. You become the K driver in karts. And Lineker was there. It was some initiative from the TV, and they were going around all around Ireland or the UK.
Oh right, okay.
So people think it's really funny. Some people don't know Kirkistown exists. Other people think it's just a bike racing track.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable the number of people, the people that we've had through the place. The names that we've had through the place. It's unfortunately nobody ever got a visitor book. And we really should have. I'll tell you, we will have one in the next month.
you guys should have a Hall of Fame. You're walking. You should be tripping over photos of these.
The people who have been. I mean, one of the funniest ones, and this won't mean anything to some of your listeners because they're far too young. But Peter Gethin for years was the fastest ever Formula One driver. He won Monza in a slipstream fest at some ridiculous 151 average or something like that. And he dropped in through at Kirkistown one day with, not Frankie Dettori, it was another guy, Richard Dunwoody, the horse, the jockey, and he just dropped in to say hello.
Unbelievable.
Totally amazing. It's fantastic, the people who have been to that place, and guys who have come up through and gone on to greater things, and they came through when they were unknowns.
Well, I think if we hit the next picture, we'll post these folks all in the show notes. So if you're sitting listening in a car,
well, if you go back, that's our Pamela.
Yeah.
Pamela is a total petrol head.
So this is Pamela Ballantyne, of course, RPM fame, of UTV fame, and all the rest. And what's that she's standing in front of?
It looks like, I figure that's a rallycross. Back in the day, it looks like a rallycross.
What's she steering? Is that a Panda?
It looks a bit like a Panda, doesn't it?
It's got a very short front.
We've a pink Panda. Interestingly, her number on the bonnet is
69. Yes.
Yeah. and sponsored by Dunkin'. Do you remember Dunkin' Donuts in Northern Ireland? So Pamela was doing a bit of look, she's wearing a Fate brand. She must be a Panda.
And it says Ciana Cumber on the overalls. That's come back a while as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So that
she's certainly in her cars. Like my dad did rallying. He used to always see her rallies even when she wasn't like coasting around. She'd just be there to.
Oh yeah, she's a real petrol head. I tell you, one of the funniest nights I've ever heard. And I can't really go into fine details here, else you'd be banned forever. But Steve Parrish, the bike racer, right? Who was Barry Sheen's teammate back in the days that worked Suzuki. You know, Steve Parrish and Pamela it was the Sparks do. Which is the big charity event at Culloden every year, and Pamela was hosting it, and Steve Parrish is one of them. I would see when, like, Steve is a hoot, an absolute hoot, you know, and he's the master of innuendo. You know, he can say things without saying them, you know, and of course Pamela is basically the female equivalent, you know. And the two of them together got going that night, and the whole place was just in kinks, absolute kinks, the two of them, you know. She's wonderful. She's a superstar.
We met her at Goodwood, actually, in the NGK VIP section. It had a bar and all. I was with a pile of guys, and of course, as soon as she heard the Northern Irish accent, she was straight over at our table, you know, and just a brilliant night. But I would actually love to. I've spoken to Plum before, and I reviewed his book, but I would love to have him on the show, and Pamela and maybe some of the other to get a bit of the old RPM stuff out of the archives, because that was a great part of our history. Sadly, gone.
Bit of Cooper innuendo going on.
So okay,
definitely that is just. I just hooked that out. That's about 1961.
Okay, so some single seaters.
Single seaters in the day. I mean, you can see it was busy in those days. You know, going by the sort of the Rapier, I think that is certainly is a Sunbeam. Road car up in the middle, and there's an old Vauxhall Cresta, do you see, or something like that sitting on over a bit.
Fantastic.
So I figure that's about 1961. Those were all, I was reliably told by Richard Young, those were all hand built cars, those single seaters.
Unreal.
Yeah,
and look fantastic. Look at the leather in the back of that seat. We'll post this again. Again, it's terrible for. This is not for audio, is it? When there's you have great photos to see, but
we saw a lot of these at the classic show as well. You know, the modern versions, like they were really nicely done.
Yeah, but fantastic.
And I love that one simply because that's the old. That's where the control tower is now.
So this is the start finish line at Kirkistown we're looking at. But there's no Armco barrier. There's no control tower. There's just a double-decker bus with a bit of advertising on the side of it, and a pile of cars just absolutely lighting up the start-finish line. So that
safety. I mean, I don't know what those two bales are for there. I mean, they're not going to. They're only something to hit as opposed to something to save you.
A target.
I remember one of the very first times I went to Kirkistown, and I was only maybe 17, and I was up standing, waiting to get across the track and watching the cars go by, and a car crashed almost in front of the tower and hit one of the big blue bins, and it went flying past me. It's like, this place is serious.
It wasn't past your ear.
It really was. I haven't got one. I would have shown it to you, but there's a couple of photographs of the hairpin back in those days, and the hairpin was lined with people, and there was no barriers. So somebody outbreak themselves. Like they were just heading straight.
Everyone was just running.
Everybody go to the road,
running for the hills. And of course, it's like a lot of circuits in the UK at old airbase.
Yes, that's Kirkistown's an old airfield. And what's amazing is that you look at the size of Kirkistown, you think it's quite big.
2.1 miles.
It's 1.56 miles.
Oh, it's only 1.56. Okay.
But I mean, the general site. It's only a tiny fraction of what the airfield was. Most of it was on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
And it was massive, So it's
fantastic.
Unreal.
It's a fascinating place.
And
this one I'm particularly fond of.
What? Okay, another photo.
Oh yeah.
What? Tell the listeners what we have in front of us. They'll have to think of it in their mind.
I'm having a mental blank here. This is a Formula Renault or something like that. It's run by the Douglas Racing Team. You hear them mentioned on BTCC in the likes of they would run a lot of juniors and other things. That's Dougal himself to the extreme right, and that's his dad on the extreme left. His dad was a heck of a driver in his day. He drove minis at Dunmore, and he also was a rallycross driver. Really, really good. Dougal himself was a good driver, but he then decided to go into team management. The reason I'm waffling here because I'm having a mental blank with the name of the guy I want to talk to you about. It's the guy in the middle beside the rather beautiful looking lady with the hair. That's his wife, and it's not. It's not Rainey. It's Formula 500 motor racing world champion in bikes, and the name has left it. That's his young son, Doan. Yeah, that's young Doan, and that's his dad. These are people at Kirkistown have turned up out of the blue. No, not out of the blue. Douglas was there, organising them. Dougal was there getting them testing, but they are fantastic. The young lad now, I think, has got as far as certainly Formula 3, maybe Formula 2, and is starting to break the I could see him in, certainly, if he doesn't hit Formula 1, he'll end up in Indy cars in America.
Yeah, unreal.
And, absolutely brilliant.
And then we've got one final photo, and this is a black and white.
The reason for bringing that one is that Team Elite, or as you can see, Team Elite were a UK team, right? Mm-hmm. This photo was taken way back in maybe even late 50s, early 60s.
And what is this?
I've no idea. It's a Lotus, I think. It's some sort of Lotus, right? But they had just won their class at Le Mans. And I came at the end of the month to race at Kirkistown.
Unbelievable.
That's just, I just thought it was a talking point,
Oh, it's just...
So the history of the place is quite amazing, the people who have been there.
Who've turned up.
Out of the blue.
So no wonder the 30, 40 years that you've been involved with the circuit, there's never a dull moment.
Oh, there's never a dull moment. It's crazy place.
Any big names have come over recently in the last 5 or 10 years that
have
surprised you?
One of my favourites is the guy who was practically living there for a while. It was Guy Martin.
Oh, yeah.
And Guy Martin, if you read his book, he mentions Kirkistown so many times, the different things he's done. Yeah. There's a picture I was trying to get, but I couldn't get my hands on it. One of the guys has it, of Guy raking about an RB John Deere lawnmower around Kirkistown.
I think he would drive anything.
Oh, absolutely. We've had a lot of people out there. Joe Dunlop, Joey as everybody calls him, he used to test at Kirkistown before the TT because he said Deaders is the first left-hander at Kirkistown. It's extremely quick, and he said that was the only corner that would let him get his bike set up right before he went to the TT because of the speed and the angle of it. So we've had a lot of good people through the place, and they keep on coming, and the cars keep on coming as well. We have some nice tasty things come across. I'm not a mad fan of classic things, but you got to appreciate it when somebody brings a big sort of V8 Formula 5000, the sheer rumble. With two of them, I think it was 2 years ago, and they were just absolutely fantastic. The sound, unreal. Monsters, absolute monsters. But it's a cool place, and it has a lot of history.
Yeah, unbelievable. And yourself then. So, taking the park and the track side of things as well, you've the Trackskills business and all the rest. So where's the rest of Donal O'Neill sit in this? Where does the hypnotist come from? Someone who is mad into racing, or the gambling I can understand more. By the way, that's why I went for the hypnotist.
Back around about the 80s as well, but at the same time I was getting into the cars. I was also an entertainment agent. That was my main business. And I remember we talked about over a few beers one night. You let this slip, and you were an agent for some big acts, local acts. I did a lot of local acts as well. Agent promoter. I used to. I'm a great lover of music, all sorts of music, but I used to bring blues guys in, Chicago bluesmen and whatnot. And I used to tag on to the tail end of tours they were doing in the UK, and I would sort of grab them, bring them over here. Usually, maybe just do Belfast. Sometimes we'd send them down to Enniskillen to the theatre down there, and the odd time down to Dublin. So I did that. That was great crack. Some really, really interesting characters. Unfortunately now that was back in the 80s, and most of them are long gone now. But it was great to have been associated with them and worked with them. And in some cases there was one guy we brought in. He became a real favourite in Belfast. I brought him back 3 or 4 times. A guy called Louisiana Red, and Red was just absolutely larger than life in every way. He was a monster of a man, and he was just an incredible guitar player. A really, really nice guy. And the first time I brought him in, I always used to keep anybody I brought in Dobbin's Hotel down in Carrickfergus, and I'd pick them up at the airport and got to the hotel, opened the room up, made sure he was happy with the room, and I asked him a question. Red, I've listened to some of your stuff. What sort of stuff do you play, really? And he opened up his guitar case and sat down on the edge of the bed, and I had a 2-hour private concert listening to this guy. It was just, you couldn't ask for better, you know.
Yeah.
It ranks up there very highly with some other things over the years. So the entertainment business, as I say, I was an entertainment agent as well, so I looked after various bands and other acts in Northern Ireland. And I worked with a number of hypnotists as well, and was fascinated by it. I mean, I've always been fascinated by that sort of thing, which is why I ended up doing a psychology degree. And it just really did. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, basically. So I started researching and digging into it and whatnot, and one thing led to another.
Even on the entertainment side, like Northern Ireland, as I know it, is completely different to maybe what you knew it back then, or how my parents knew it. You know, when you're, we hear so much about the bad thing. It's lovely to hear about, you bringing this total distraction to people's lives.
Well, Northern Ireland has gone through a lot of changes, both good and bad. I mean, before my time, there was a massive, massive cabaret scene in Northern Ireland, and there was the show band scene as well.
Yes.
When you went down the country a wee bit. The Troubles came along, and it effectively, what it did, it hit the cabaret clubs. It basically wiped them out, literally, in some cases, and those clubs moved into those cabaret clubs that were open to the public moved into the club scene. So you would have had football clubs and various other clubs, and then it kind of withered and died. The whole cabaret scene. The band scene was still about, but it was more west of the band, Kirkistown, places like that were really good. That's where the big crowd still were. It was the remnants of the show band scene, but there were some good bands coming, the likes of Sunshine and whatnot. And I brought a band in and set up residence here called Gaga, and they were terrific, And that was a great thing to be involved in. It was good fun, So I missed the height of the cabaret scene, but they say the hypnotic stuff still was, there was business there, and thankfully now it's coming back. And what is coming back now is there's an awful lot of people now. There's more people playing now than they're ever playing. Now, if you go into any bar now, they've all got, even Belfast, every bar has somebody in the corner playing the guitar and singing, totally. Which is brilliant. Gets people work, gives them a living.
I think Belfast for an evening out, for a bite, for food is top class.
It's bouncing.
I think
YouTube now is giving people such a platform to make themselves well known, to get out.
I tell you, there's a girl in Grafton Street in Dublin, Abby, what's her other name? I just can't think of it. YouTube. Look up Abby Grafton Street. She's incredible, and YouTube has made it for her. She's ended up playing all over Europe now, simply because of her YouTube.
Well, we went to see a guy a couple of months ago, Dan McCabe, in the City Hotel in Armagh. There was over 1,000 people there, and they were all standing feet to the end, cheering him on. And this guy, at the start of the first lockdown, was stacking shelves in the supermarket.
That's it.
And he got his few songs on YouTube and just took off.
That's it. It's one of the good things about social media. People can get their stuff out there. It used to be you were begging publishers and record people that you had to get your record break. Then some bands started self-publishing, which helped a bit. But now you can, and TikTok is another one.
Yeah, huge.
I mean, the TikTok is absolutely huge. I mean, I've been, when I say I've been on TikTok, I've been watching TikTok for the last couple of years, simply because of the magic on it. The people doing magic, and I'm into magic. I love that, all that stuff, And TikTok was one of the first places I started doing that, and it's brilliant, and it's good to give people that opportunity to get themselves out there. Now, there's obviously other things that are terrible with social media. It's sad, and this whole business of people putting themselves out there. Oh, look at me! Look at how good my life is. When in actual fact, behind the scenes, it's shit. And it's mentally not good for people. People think they have to live up to that. But the entertainment business is exciting again. It really is. And I would go back into it again if I was young enough to do it. Into the whole that end of it. But I love doing the hypnotic stuff. I love doing the casinos.
And the casinos as well. So that's something you do at weddings and events and all that.
Weddings, corporate, and so on. We've had a couple of real good runs with corporate over the Christmas period. Well, not actually over Christmas. Stuff was cancelled before Christmas, but we've got it back again this month, and it has been good. And people really do let their hair down. It's good fun. There aren't any casinos in Northern Ireland. They're not no real ones. And we all do it with funny money. If it's a wedding, we get a picture of the bride and groom on the funny money. If it's a corporate, do we put the company logo on or whatever, and we hand out the funny money at the start of the night. And it's just like a real casino. The reason a real casino uses chips is to get you to forget it's real money. You know, we give them the funny money, and as soon as they get the chips, they forget it's not real, you know, and they get into it big style.
We had it here, you know, at my workplace at a Christmas party about 3 years ago, and it was like 170 staff. And it, you know, it was the best night's crack.
It's brilliant. We've been doing it now. I started Mulsanne a long time ago, and we have worked for just about every big name there's ever been. But the best ones we've done in Belfast was I think we're 12 or 14 tables in the Europa Hotel one night.
Oh, fantastic.
For a company which have now been absorbed by somebody else. They were one of the cash and carry companies that were absorbed by Musgrave. But it was a mighty night, absolutely mighty night. And we did that 3 or 4 years in the trot. It was brilliant, yeah. And the biggest one we have ever done was 22 tables in Dublin. We actually had to bring some in, yeah. That was mad.
Unreal.
Absolutely mad. Yeah. So there's been a lot of stories about that too. Yeah.
So it's fair to say that you don't have a normal 9 to 5?
No.
And you haven't had...
Never have had. Never ever have had. I mean, I came out of university and what did I came out, it was Jordanstown back in the day before it was university. It was a poly in those days. And the first job I ever had was in a lab, and it was continental shifts. So it was 12-hour shifts, you know, 7 out of 14, so that wasn't normal. I was in Cordals. They then closed down, and I went into Amblers and Ballyclare in the lab in there, and that was night shift, you know. And then I came out of Amblers, and I started up with a mate of mine, Eurotanks, way back, and that was in the days when all the cars on the road, their petrol tanks used to fall to rust over a period of time, you know, way before they started putting petrol or plastic tanks in the cars, you know. And I mean, our favourite car was the Morris Marina, because the tanks were like sieves. You know, what used to happen? They had a flat top. Them and the Allegro, they were both equally wonderful as far as we were concerned.
Absolute dung.
Well, the way they were designed, the muck came up off the back wheels, it settled on the top of the tank, and of course there wasn't enough speed to blow it off. So it sat there and just rusted its way through. And I mean, our business was based on those two cars, and the other ones was the necks on the Ford Cortinas. The tanks themselves were all right, but the filler neck used to rot, you know. And we ran that business for quite a number of years, refurbishing tanks, and did quite well out of it. And the only thing that killed it was the plastic tanks coming in, yeah.
And then you just shed that skin and moved into something else.
I'd got involved with the entertainment business at the same time as I was doing Eurotanks, and then it came to the point there was two of us, Norman and myself, and as the business declined in Eurotanks, there really wasn't enough to sustain both of us. So at that stage, I had begun to build the agency up with the entertainment. So I said, look, I'll cut out here. Norman and I are still the very best of friends. I went down the entertainment line. He stayed with the tanks until there was no business left. And he now works for Larson's, the paint coating people. He's an engineer in there. So... no, it's been fascinating, but you're right. No, I've never had an ordinary job.
And this is what we were talking about this earlier. I love about the podcast because we get a chance to have more than a 2-minute chat at the side of Kirkistown or over a few beers or something like that. Just because it's totally different life to what many people are sitting. You know, they're going through their 9 to 5 or else, and you've just moved from sometimes just one idea to another, and made a whole career.
Yeah, well, this is it. I mean, I've never had a real job, you know. I suppose being the manager of Kirkistown is as close as I've ever got to having a real job, really, you know. The excitement about that is I'm looking forward to try and develop. It's going to be interesting the next 10 years in terms of everything, because you've got the whole sort of eco business coming on. You know, people are... Let's face it, we've just talked about with the electric vehicles. You know, the day of the internal combustion engine is numbered. There's no question about it. You know, we took a step last year at Kirkistown with some opposition within the club, and we planted 13,500 trees in the circuit. Now, that's for two reasons. First reason is a noise deadener, and the second reason is to offset our carbon footprint.
Yep.
You know, so when people do finally point the finger and saying, "What are you guys doing running around here with petrol engines, you know, you're burning up, you're sending carbon into the atmosphere," we say, well, we actually have 13,500 trees here, which are offsetting that, you know. And things like that, we have, I mean, as I said to you earlier, some people think there's only ever motorbike races happening at Kirkistown, but there's other things even apart from the combustion engine. We have, in a couple of months' time, we have a 5K running race at Kirkistown for the local people. We have the cycle races that happen there because people are scared to ride on the bikes on the road these days. It's too dangerous. So they come to Kirkistown, have their cycle race around Kirkistown.
Flat at deaders.
Absolutely, flat at deaders. And I'm hoping to take it. Develop we're part of the community down there.
Make it multi-purpose.
I want to become a bigger part of the community, and it'll help. It'll help a long way.
There's no reason you can't. You see the way it's come along so far, and that's
well, the circuit. I mean, compare those photographs to what it looks like today. It's staying now. That's the thing about the Kirkistown, as opposed to all the other racetracks in the UK. As I said before, we're owned by the club. We're a non-profit organisation.
Yeah.
Every penny we make goes back into the track, which is why it looks like it looks.
Yeah.
There's nobody taking anything out of it.
I've seen a massive change in the 20 odd years that I've been going in there. You've built a new pavilion, you've the pit garages, and the surface of the place, and we'll keep doing that. I mean, I'd say the next thing, there's things that you probably don't notice. Things that we've done that you won't notice. We extended the control tower to give the clerks of the courses better viewing and all the rest of it. So, that's something most people wouldn't notice, but it's infinitely better than what it was, infinitely better. Probably the next thing, we want to put new signalling, electronic signalling at the corners, and down the line it'll be cameras at all the corners as well. And, as the trees get bigger, we'll have to have cameras at the corners. That's the only thing about the trees, and that was the objection that people had. I mean, the fact is you can stand on the bank at the chicane and you can see 3/4 of the circuit. At the moment, in 10 years' time, you won't be able to do that.
The new version of the Green Hell.
This is it. But it's progress. It has to happen. I could see a situation if it didn't do these things, we simply wouldn't be open in 10 years' time. It would be gone.
And you said there's a fair bit of land attached to this circuit. Would you ever think expanding on that?
It's funny you should say that. We have just. I'm being careful with it. We have just bought the house at the end of the circuit, which has 4 acres of land. Now, to be honest with you, the main reason for buying that house was not necessarily to get the 4 acres of land, although that will be useful, but it was to make sure that nobody else bought it. To make sure we didn't get somebody moving in and then saying, "Oh, you're far too loud," because we do get a bit of that.
People do that to move in beside airports and places and then complain about the noise that produces.
Well, that was the closest property to our circuit, and we've now got it.
Great.
So it'll be that's going to end up being another business, because we're probably going to do it. We might rent it. We may do it Airbnb. I personally would like to go down the Airbnb route, but we'll have to sort of see, can we go that way? Because
what an idea for the likes of your German fella coming over. Or
well, this is it. I mean, we have about 13 weekends a year when there's some form of motorsport on at Kirkistown. And people, if you look at the paddock, people are staying over. People are already using guest houses.
Well, I was going to say a caravan park. You can see all those possibilities there for getting people in there.
Swifts ready to go.
This is
exactly. There's that's people want to go and fly somewhere like is it Palmer Sport do it in England? You can fly over and hire something and get out in
absolutely.
People here maybe visiting up around that part of the country anyway and want to see around it. And I know when we used to go as a family when I was young, my dad's petrolhead, my brother's petrolhead. You'd always be looking for a go-kart track or something to do wherever you are, something car-related,
Yeah. And the other side of the coin is, if you look at that photograph that we have on our website, the aerial photograph of the track.
We'll stick that in the show notes.
You see how close we are to the sea.
Yeah.
So the other weekends when there's no motor racing on, I would say we'd have no problem people wanting to stay there.
Anyway. Down the Arch Peninsula is a beautiful part of the country.
Absolutely, and we're spoiled here in Ireland. We think if you drive any more than 30 miles, it's a major excursion, But the Americans, they think nothing. If you advertise, you're 80 miles if Kirkistown from the Giant's Causeway.
Yeah,
they go 80 miles. That's nothing.
Yeah.
And you're
break a sweat.
Absolutely. So I think we could make a real good go of that property as an Airbnb and facilitate the people who are wanting to use Kirkistown.
It's the way forward, definitely.
I think so.
This
all the sense
is fantastic to hear because it sounds that Kirkistown is a gem and so a potential gem in so many ways, and that you have the enthusiasm and the experience and all the rest. You're just in the right position, hopefully, to take the.
Well, hopefully we are. You never know what's around the corner, but with a bit of luck, and things fall into place. I say it's fallen into place now already. We've got that house. That's the start of it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Does that mean I can go flat and third sideways through Colonial 1 and 2?
Aye.
Straight to your
We're allowed to do still no sliding.
You wouldn't be the first person to end up that bank.
Not to swing back to EVs, but do you see any impact on your track day, kind of attendance numbers and things with the rise of EVs, or do you think there'll be just as many people bringing them in future?
That is a worry, and I'll tell you why. We were talking about it on the way down here. In England, obviously, we it hasn't come to us yet, but in England, I know a lot of track operators, especially track day operators, are not allowing electric vehicles. And the reason for that is that you need a completely different fire rescue system. Mm-hmm. If an EV does go on fire, you can't just do what you would do in an ordinary car because of the electrical charge in it. You just have to let it burn. Mm-hmm. And the trouble is, it burns through the track. And that makes a big problem, So a lot of UK tracks are saying no EVs, until, as I say, when they get a proper system where they can safely remove a burning EV and get it off the track safely without electrocuting whoever's trying to get it off, then I would love to see the power of that car the night. That would just, going off the line of Kirkistown round Deaders, that would just be wonderful.
Unbelievable.
It would be fantastic, So, yes,
I mean, pity about the noise, as we're saying. It's good for you in a way. I don't lower the decibels, but you miss that kind of screaming.
Look, the EVs don't have the stamina for it yet.
No.
Maybe half a dozen laps of Kirkistown, or 10 minutes of track time, you'd come in, the battery would be flat, and then it would have to sit in the charger for the rest of it.
And that'll be your next job, getting a row of chargers put on.
Aye, yeah. Well, I mean, with a row of chargers electric feeds for caravan, so I don't see why we couldn't get chargers in if the time came. I think we'll have to put a couple of chargers anyway for spectators, because people aren't going to come to Kirkistown in EVs, and they're going to want to plug their car, and there's no reason why not. And that would be moving along with the times. It's just a natural thing to do.
A super unleaded pump down there would be some job.
It really would be. Do you know the thing about it? It used to be the old Kelly's garage, which has just been flattened and rebuilt as you go through Kirkcudbright, the very last garage. It used to have 5-star back in the day when it was 5-star, and for why I've no idea why they took it away. It's a real pain that they don't have it.
Yeah, because I remember the Lotus, especially when it had a 40-litre tank, so it was carrying a couple of wee baby jerry cans from Dundonald or something like that there, Yeah,
well, it's even the same with ourselves, the race cars.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough. In fact, the garage is right beside you as well. That K garage behind you.
Yes, has super.
They have super,
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm down there before a race weekend filling up, 15 or so cans of jerry cans for the 4-star super unleaded,
Yeah. Need to get a tanker down there.
Absolutely. But it would be good if they would do. But
that sounds so exciting for what you plan, and we all really hope, and I'm sure everyone listening is going, this sounds class. Make it a real weekend destination, or
Well, that's what we want to do, And I mean, there's people, as I say, people who haven't been down in a while at a weekend. There's a good cafe down there. It's okay. It's cafe food. It's not gourmet food. On a Friday night, it is gourmet food. Before a race meeting. So if somebody wants to come down and they are camping or staying in a motorhome for the race, there's a good feed.
Stick a few pods outside, make it a whole camping experience too.
That's maybe not that far away. That could come too. That has crossed the mind. Yeah,
I'm sure it has.
So there's a lot of things that can be done in the future.
No, fantastic,
brilliant,
fantastic. Well, and the right man in the right place to do it.
Well, hopefully. Well, have to live up to the hype,
Well, look, we really appreciate you coming. I think we'll pull this one into the pits.
I think business secrets here now. So.
I was going to say, I don't know if it's a checkered flag or a red flag or black flag.
Black
flag I'm getting here. But Donal, that was first class. We really appreciate you coming along.
No, it's been fun.
And everyone else, thanks for listening. Ross will hopefully be back on the next show, and
with his 4.1 diff,
with his 4.1 back end, and we'll get through all the forum questions, because I think he was the one who asked for questions. We got pages.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions. I think we could spend a show just doing the questions, and especially when we start talking about cars we've owned.
And we'll get that wiped out soon. I'm out in the Tesla as well. But look,
well, actually, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you if you don't mind.
I do mind, but do it anyway.
Take another few minutes, Donal, of your time. We did have a few questions for you.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I just noticed them on the list here, so this was
just having it just comes shooting in my mind. Mick Doon was the guy.
Mick Doon in the picture.
In the picture, and Jack Doon is his son. Yeah.
This was from Gav525 on the forum. He's over in Dubai at the moment, or maybe permanently. I'm not sure. You can let us know. Questions for Donal. Your ideal car to take on a lap around Kirkistown?
To take on a lap around Kirkistown?
Or laps, I guess.
Well, it depends when you're talking about a road car. If it's a road car that you might be thinking of, the most enjoyable car, one of the most enjoyable cars I've had around there is an Aston Martin, which was great fun.
V8 or V12, or what
it
vintage?
was one of the older ones, actually.
Oh, right, okay, like a 80s one, like a...
No, it was probably, I'd say it wasn't the 80s, no, it was around about sort of 210 or 2 thereabouts,
Oh, right, okay.
Guy arrived down, said take a run on that, it was great.
Oh,
I really enjoyed it. My favourite car I've driven around Kirkistown was a Radical, really beautiful. They're just fantastic. Once the aero kicks in, you just stick to the road. It's just fantastic.
And in something like that, how hard can you go through Debtors and something like that?
Debtors is flat. Debtors is flat in the Radical. There's no two ways about it. But what is really interesting is you really can feel the tyres switch on about the third lap. When you go in first 2 laps into Colonial, you wash out.
Mm-hmm.
And the third lap, the heat's in and they stick. And it's just brilliant. And then Fisherman's is really good. Because the tyres are.
You probably feel that much more when you do in a road car, the sense of connection.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
It's all one.
It was Philip Shields actually, Radical. I drove around there a lot, and it was so much fun.
Unreal.
Definitely. So that's probably, in terms of overall cars, that's my best experience.
Okay. Next one up, funniest thing you've ever seen happen at a Trackskills day?
A Trackskills day?
Yeah.
Oh, that's different. I have to know. I could think of other things, but a Trackskills day. Funniest thing. Oh, jeez, flip that. Now you're pushing me to try and...
It could be a long list or a short list, maybe.
It probably is long enough. Well, actually, it's not a very nice thing, but it was hilarious.
That sounds like our cup of tea. Continue.
We're going back a long way. And there used to be a guy. There's 2 guys. I'll not mention one of the guys' names because he's still alive, right?
Jesus.
But no. There was a guy came. He's one of the back in the early days. He was one of our first guys that came to us on a regular basis. He always drove Subarus, and he's a really nice fellow. He's from the south and very likable guy. And generally speaking, never any grief whatsoever. Now, there was another wee guy called Crilly. His second name was Crilly, and he was a wee Belfast man,
Mm-hmm.
And once again, very likeable guy, right? But he would have been in his 60s, probably. The other fellow would have been in his late 30s, And the other guy, say, always drove Subarus. Mr. Crilly was a Ferrari nut, right? It turned out he had raced at Kirkistown apparently way back in the 60s, But... once again, likeable guy. So I was out wandering about the paddock, and the next thing I see, the session was over, right? And the Ferrari came in, driving to the paddock, and the next thing I see is the Subaru in the paddock, out in front of him, and standing on the brakes. I thought, that's weird, And it's not like the guy in the Subaru; it wasn't his style, And the guy in the Subaru, what had happened was, the guy in the Subaru figured the guy in the Ferrari had cut him up on the track. Now, I, to this day, don't know whether he did or not. I certainly got no reports from the marshals that it had been any untoward. Mm-hmm. But the guy in the Subaru definitely thought he'd been badly cut up by the Ferrari, and he was livid. I'd never seen this guy raise his voice, never mind be livid, right? Now, bear in mind, this is a big lad from the south somewhere. This is a wee hard man from West Belfast, right? The big lad in the Subaru gets out. That was his first mistake, getting out. The second mistake was he took his helmet off. And he storms down to your man, on a mission. Your wee guy gets out of the Ferrari, sees this guy coming at him, meaning business, and did what any wee West Belfast man would do. He lamped him. He just floored him. No, it should never have happened.
Which one had the box range?
It shouldn't have happened. I don't agree with it at all. Anybody using violence at all. But I sort of could see he was getting his retaliation in first. He figured your mom was going to lamp him. And the handling I had to do trying to sort that one out.
Needless to say, this is not a normal.
Oh no, that is the first and last time that ever happened. But it was actually funny. It really was funny. There was it was one punch thrown. And that was the end of it.
I'm sure you were suddenly your events head on thinking that we could have a rematch here next week.
But that's the funniest thing that ever happened at a track day. The most strange thing I've ever seen happen at Kirkistown was way back in the motorbike days, and I think it was Brian Reid on probably a 250 or 350 Yamaha, high-sided at Ditters, and the bike spat him off, right? But whatever way it happened, the bike managed to come back up onto its wheels again, right? And continued on down the track with no rider, right? Now, bear in mind, there's nobody riding it. So as it gets towards Colonial 1, it's losing momentum. And it then it lost the momentum completely. Colonial 1 began to fall over, so it fell over to the right and went right round the corner with no rider. It was the most freaky thing I've ever seen.
I would say.
It was really bizarre,
Headless man.
Absolutely. So that's the strangest thing I've ever seen in Kirkistown.
And I'm just looking at the questions here, and you can tell these are RMS members, our Trackskills regulars. Donal, do you ever get bored of endless Clios and MX-5s?
Oh God, no. No, I mean, I love it. It's really strange. Over the years, we've seen things come and go. When we first started out, we did get an awful lot of MX-5s originally, and that's because of a guy called Andy Thompson. Dr. Andy Thompson was he looked after the MX-5s owner club at the time, and he was a track day nut, right? He then got a new post. He worked in Queens, and then he got a new post somewhere across the water, and the guy who took over was into sort of going road trips. So the MX-5s all disappeared, and then we went through the series where we had endless amounts of what we call locator fields, Westfields, etc. And we built up one time till we did have one session which was full, 15 cars, and every one of them was a locator field, and it was class. It was absolutely brilliant. Then they disappeared, and then the Clios came, and the Clios were mighty, absolutely mighty. They are crazy. They're good. Most of the guys that drive them are pretty good too, but they do give the marshals the scare the daylights of the marshals because they're so close. Some of them are very talented guys, but they are sort of pushing it a wee bit, And now the MX-5s have come back again, which is great, So it's good. It's good. I have to say that probably the best value is the Clio.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially you pick up a 172. You've got yourself a great wee car for very little money, and just start stripping it. But then you get total lunatics like is his first name or second name Graham? The guy who stripped it, the Clio, down to absolutely nothing and put two Kawasaki's into the back of it.
That's right. I remember seeing that car. Mental.
Absolutely insane.
Absolutely mental.
They're fairly light out of the box, aren't they, anyway, before you strip them?
They're fairly light, they are indeed. But the good thing about that is you can put a cage in, and it's still quite light.
Yeah.
And I love to see cages. I would love to see every car with a cage. Now, we couldn't legislate for that because the whole ethos of a track day is to run your ordinary road car.
Yeah.
But when I see a car coming on with a cage, it's very nice.
It's a wee safety net.
It's a wee safety net. And the other thing, people say to me, I've got such and such a car, I'm going to up the engine power to this, that, and the other thing. I said, forget about that. That's the last thing you do in a track car. First thing you do is uproot your brakes. Get the brake. That'll give you 2 seconds a lap. If you uproot the brakes. Then do the suspension after that. It'll give you another second. And then put a cage in, that'll stiffen the whole thing, give you another second. And when you've got all that done, you might want to look at the engine. But at that time, you're probably going faster than you really want to anyway.
Yeah, I found that just sort of getting a bit older and buying better cars. And I'm always buying a car it used to be 1 or 2 steps beyond my ability, and it's now 10 steps beyond my ability, and you can't keep up. So there's just no replacement for just getting out on track and something simple and just learning the track and learning your own, building on your own skills rather than just.
Yeah. But I'll be honest, first few track days I did was a bit like that there. I kept thinking, I need more power, I'm going to remap this and do this and that. But then as you do more and more, that becomes less your focus, and it's more about what time did I get and what am I going to get my next time, and then you start focusing more on the corners and the handling, and you realise the power's not the be all and end all by any means.
The key to Kirkistown is to be smooth.
Carrying speed.
Carry the speed, be smooth. Anybody who's grabbing at things, and sawing at the steering wheel, they're losing time all the time. If they're smooth, it doesn't feel fast, but it is fast. And usually, if it feels fast, it's not.
There's a guy. He's a very, very good driver. A guy in the UK, and he trains race car drivers. He takes them out, and I wish I could remember his name. I'll look it up and I'll put it in the show notes. But I remember he took out an F1 driver, and the F1 driver was amazed. It was like a 1.6 Focus, just totally normal car, not even a sports car or performance car at all. And he was just amazed at the speed he was able to get through corners in this Focus, just because he was so smooth.
Which is what you guys do at Trackskills. You guys have some sort of vehicle you use for.
Yeah, but BMW at the moment.
Yeah, for a bit of sighting and bits and pieces.
We take people out and take them around, and it's quite funny because I'm usually there because I'm usually doing the admin stuff first thing in the morning, and it's Greer who'd be Greer Ray who's usually taking them around. Greer Ray's an instructor anyway, an ARGE instructor, as is both Keith and myself.
Greer's actually he's taken me out, I think, in one of my Lotuses a while ago, and it was just it's like I have learnt so much in 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah. But you see people getting out of the back of the car or the front or whatever, and you just look in their faces, and they have a mixture of fear and incredulity. That car can go that quick or through such and such a corner, but it's all where you place the car on the track. And it makes such a difference. So we do that, and then I have a guy this Saturday now. I'm going to doing a 1-to-1 with him at Kirkistown, just sort of doing 4 hours coaching, and he's coming in an Alpine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Well, that'll be class.
Fun. Yeah, it really will be. So, basically what I'll be trying to do with them is just get them smooth, and it's all about what way you apply the power, what way you apply the brakes, where you place the car on the track.
And I have driven one. By all accounts, those cars are beautifully balanced. They're just a great. I presume it's a new Alpine.
It's a new one as opposed to the old one, which used to like to rotate.
Yes, yes.
The time,
So no, I think these things are and very lightweight and all as well. That I would love a run on one.
Yeah.
Last question: when everyone has fucked off home and the lights are off, do you ever just go out in the track on your own?
Usually just that knackered, to be honest with you. No, probably not that often. It's quite funny. Racing's my passion down there, and I love racing, and I love being out in the race car around the place. But one of the most fun things I ever did, I think it was one of the first times I'd been to the ring, and it had been wet from the minute we arrived to the minute we went home again. And I learnt so much when I was there about car control. And that was in the days when I had the Cosy as the Trackskills car. And the next track day, I came back on the Sunday, and the following Sunday we had a track day, and it was practically flooded. And there's a picture of me somewhere in the Cosy driving through this dirty great puddle with a smile from ear to ear. That was one of the most enjoyable things I've ever had. The Cosy did handle well anyway, 4-wheel drive and whatnot, but just having done so much on the ring, because that place is like a skating rink in the wet, as you know.
It's still fresh in the ring.
Definitely, and the confidence it gave you around Kirkistown. The ring, you're on edge. In case you go off, you're going to hit something. There's no two ways about it, But when you get around Kirkistown, the nearest barriers are way over there. You can have a bit of fun,
Random fact about the ring: I was phoning around today about insurance renewal for the GT4, and I was chatting to one of the places, and I said, "I'd have interest. You do track day cover? Always ask for track day cover. Yeah, do track." I was like, I'd have interest. It wasn't my insurer. But I said, "Do you do cover for the ring?" He said, "Well, yes, if you do it one of the ring organised track days." And I was like, "Right, okay. What's the deal for that?" It's like, "Well, it's the charges are 1% of the car's value for the day, and then the excess is 10% of the car's value."
Jesus, that's a lot of excess.
Taking a clue.
So that's So I was like, all right. So it's £700 for a day's insurance, and $7,000 if I stuff it, and you get your full payout for that. But it's huge money. Big excess.
Having said that, the first time we went to the ring, we did a sack speed day, which was great because you had no bikes and no buses. It was just, and we were also getting the full circuit. You didn't have to come in and go out.
Yes,
it was the whole lap. But we did it with Ron Simmons. at the time in an Alpha. Was it 155, 145? The rear-wheel drive Alpha.
Oh, is it? What do you call that? 75?
75.
Alpha 75. Yep.
Oh God, it was so much fun. But that's another story. But anyway, we arrived on the Friday night, I think it was, and went down to the track. We weren't due to be there until the Saturday. Met up with Ron. He said, "Have you been here before?" No. He said, "Jump in the back." So we jumped in the back of his Alpha, which was set up perfectly, right? And away we went, and the cars that were out there, they were just glorious because it was a Sack Speed day. So everything you'd ever seen and things you'd never seen before out there. He was giving people a hard time in the Alpha. Yeah. And I remember we were sitting behind this Ferrari, and the Ferrari started getting really leery trying to stay ahead of us, so Ron backed off completely. But two things happened the next day. Come the Saturday morning, the paddock, which you know is quite small, the ring, was absolutely stuffed full of beautiful exotic cars. There wasn't room to move. And some idiot arrived with an oil tanker to deliver oil. And you know where the oil tank is? It's at the bottom of the paddock. So he's trying to negotiate his way through these thousands of pounds worth of cars. And there was a guy with a replica of a BMW sort of touring car. It was very nice. And he just nicked the back of it with his bumper. And your man was going apeshit completely and all the rest of it. So anyway, it was wet. And we went out for the first session. And in that first session, the first thing we saw was the Ferrari that we were giving a hard time to on the Friday night, stuffed into the wall. And the next thing we saw was the BMW with 3 corners knocked off it. Yeah. We worked out, we figured there was about £1 million worth of damage done in that first session at the ring. You know?
That's the scary part of going to the ring, isn't it?
It really is. And I mean, for me, the scary part of going to the ring isn't the damage you do to your own car. It's what you pay if you damage the arm coat and you close the track and you have to get recovered.
Or you hurt someone else or something like that.
There's these compilation videos on YouTube now you see of the ring crashes. And the amount of times it happens is terrifying.
It's very easy for it to happen, you know.
It's easy.
I mean, the ring is only, 13 mile long, roughly, right? The TT is 37.5 miles. I probably have forgotten most of it now, but I would have said I knew the TT. Wow. I never raced it.
Wow.
It was much easier to learn in the ring.
Really?
Much easier
to learn. The ring
ring
is an incredibly technical mental challenge.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
The thing about the TT, you can divide the TT up into about 6 sections, and you just learn one section at a time. I found the best I could do with the rings divide it in half, and I still haven't learned it, really.
I think part of the problem in the ring too is you have the Gran Turismo generation who think they know the track because they've played it.
Yeah.
And then take the car out and it's a very different experience.
Oh, it doesn't, although it does help.
It helps.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
it certainly helps, but then you see some of these offs and things, and people, the sensation of carrying a speed into a certain corner in a game. It's a very different thing than they do in real life, obviously.
The first time I was racing at Spa, I actually bought an old DVD of WEC cars racing at Spa, and I watched it.
Yeah.
And it did help. Now, it was nothing like the real thing when you got a car out there, but at least you knew what corner was coming next.
Yeah.
You know?
Whereas now guys have racing sims and all that sort of carry on. So mate Pete Venom in RMS, he's built himself a cracker racing sim, and I was on it before Christmas. Funny enough, doing Spa, and it was just incredible. And I thought, what a great way to learn.
Oh, it certainly helps you a lot.
To learn track layout.
It really does help a lot.
But
it's worth doing. Although sims make me a bit sick, I find. Unless they're the ones that give you the full experience.
The full feedback and all the rest. For rallying is incredible because you get the pace notes and all the rest. That's some job. But anyway, we're definitely going to get black flag now. So
we're on the endurance race here.
Absolutely. Donal, really appreciate you having you on. That was absolutely fabulous, and for the best of luck for Kirkistown Trackskills and all the other endeavours. As I'll reiterate, the right man, the right place, the right time, I think there. And to everyone else listening, thanks for being here. Remember to like, subscribe, do all the things that are supposed to help the podcast get out there. Give us 5 stars on iTunes or whatever you do. To find us, we are everywhere at RMS Motoring on the socials. If you want to ask us some questions, ask us on the forum in the Sold as Seen section, or email us at pod@rmsmotoring.com, or on the socials as well. And thanks for joining us. And remember, there's no warranty. This was Sold as Seen.